describing how it worked. So basically, there was this thing called Bitcoin, and there was a website called bitcoin.org, and there was a white paper describing how it worked, and there was a whole bunch of information on that website describing how this could scale to be cash for the entire world. And people started to use it as cash, and they started to buy and sell things, and they were telling their friends and family and setting them up with wallets, and people all over the world started to use it as cash. And then a bunch of people who came to Bitcoin much later started using all sorts of censorship and literally deleting people's posts that were advocating using Bitcoin in the same way that was described in the original Bitcoin white paper. They started mocking people who wanted to use Bitcoin to buy things like coffee. They started mocking people who wanted to use Bitcoin as described in the Bitcoin white paper. And they used censorship and propaganda to belittle those people. And then they basically diverted the entire Bitcoin project into something that wasn't usable as peer-to-peer cash, as described in the very title of the white paper. And so, of course, people who came to Bitcoin and wanted it to be money for the entire world were upset by the fact that a bunch of people who came to Bitcoin later used censorship and propaganda to divert the entire Bitcoin project into something that's not even remotely described in the Bitcoin white paper or on the original Bitcoin website. And then they want to call their project Bitcoin, and then they want to make fun of the actual Bitcoin that's described in the white paper by calling it names like Bcash. Of course people are going to be angry when that happens. And of course people that appreciate economic freedom are going to be upset because we've delayed the adoption of cryptocurrencies around the world by several years because of the censorship and propaganda and the diversion of the Bitcoin scaling roadmap. So that means more babies are dying in countries around the world because they have less economic freedom. More people are starving to death because they have less economic freedom. People are literally dying because of this. I'm not exaggerating. This is a life and death matter around the world, and more people are dying because we haven't been able to bring more economic freedom to the world as quickly as we otherwise would have been. And people like to make jokes about how Bitcoin isn't for people that make less than $2 a day. Well, I have news for you. Bitcoin is for everybody. And Bitcoin is alive and well in the form of Bitcoin Cash. And the thing that's currently called Bitcoin Core is some science project that's for a bunch of people living in first world countries with a bunch of money already and doesn't have the ability to help people that actually need the help the most. So that's why I'm mad about this, and that's why I'm passionate about this, because I want to see Bitcoin Cash be available for every single person on the planet, regardless of how much money they have or where they were born. What say you?
I grew up in the U.S. and I see all these people like, yeah, nuke everybody in the Middle East and kill them all. And then they have the former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright on 60 Minutes, one of the most popular news shows in the U.S. And they asked her, they said, like, there's reports that more than 500,000 Iraqi children have died as a direct result of U.S. sanctions. And she looks back at her with a straight face and she goes, it was a really tough decision, but I think that it was worth it.
You know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Worth murdering 500,000 kids because of what the government did? And I apologize for crying, but it just disgusts me from my core when I see government people murdering people around the world. It's not just theoretical. These are real people with real lives. And Bitcoin has the power to undermine everything they're doing to people around the world. And I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.